Verses for practice, page 12 of the quantitative reading of Latin poetry. And we're going to look at our first little bit of verse. This text is downloadable from archive.org. Search for Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T. And the text is called The Quantitative Reading of Latin Poetry. So this verse we're going to look at contains no elisions. So all we have to worry about here is getting the quantity correct. If we read with correct quantity and with the syllable breaks in the right places, the verse will simply, all by magic, fall into place without us having to do anything at all. I'm going to read very slowly through these 4 lines, and then I'm going to point out a couple of things to notice. So our first read through is going to be extremely slow. Dignum, mente, domoque, legentis, honesta, Neronis, Labitur, uncta, carina, per aequora, cana, celocis, Sternitur, aequoris, unda, resolvitur, aetheris, umbra, sed tamen anni iam labuntur tempore toto. Now, no self-respecting Roman would ever have read a piece of poetry like that. But we've gone through it very, very slowly on purpose. Notice a few things. Domoque, and the accent there falls on the o, domoque. Notice that a word like cana has got the circumflex accent, cana, and so does celocis. A word like Labitur, if we didn't have the first a as long by nature, we would have a short syllable, but it's long. Labitur. Uncta has got a long u, but it's a long syllable anyway. So it makes no difference to us if we pronounce it long or short. I mean, it's obviously incorrect to pronounce that u short, but in terms of syllable length, it's not affected. Uncta. But in carina, the ri in carina is affected, and we have to give it a long I by nature. Carina. And labuntur in the last line. Labuntur, same applies there. In the last line, anni. Anni. The first an in the first syllable and the second ni in the second. It's not anni, but anni. Now, we don't necessarily have to break it, anni. A Roman would not have done that. But what you would do is find a definite weighting of that n to both syllables, anni. And the last word on the line, toto. Each syllable is heavy. It has a long vowel, long by nature, toto. And notice how the tone is affected by this, toto. Right? Latin words, if you think of them, they have a rising tone and a falling tone. And this also affects the poetry, because you have a tonal range within each word, and then you have the syllable length, right? And then you have the natural accent. So these three things, the tone, the syllable length, and the natural accent sort of all come to play together. And it's a bit like driving a coach and horses, or getting on a bicycle for the first time. The chances are you're going to fall off. You're doing a lot of things all at once. And then, of course, getting it technically correct, then comes the artistic interpretation, and that's another kettle of fish entirely. Just simply reading it like a computer program will not do. But you have to get to that point before you can go to the point of artistic interpretation. Let's read again. Dignum mente domoque legentis honesta Neronis Labitur uncta carina per aequora cana celocis Sternitur aequoris unda resolvitur aetheris umbra sed tamen anni labuntur tempore toto. And once more, but read probably in a slightly freer way. Dignum mente domoque legentis honesta Neronis labitur uncta carina per aequora cana celocis Sternitur aequoris unda resolvitur aetheris umbra sed tamen anni labuntur tempore toto. So, to recap, when you are reading Latin poetry, you can more or less forget about the ictus. It'll take care of itself. Concentrate on getting your syllables divided correctly. Concentrate on getting your vowel lengths correct when they are long by nature, like dignum mente domoque legentis honesta Neronis. Also, you will have your natural word accent of the Latin. Do not accent the ictus. In this bit of poetry, it happens to be that the natural accent and the ictus fall in the same place, but this is not usually the case. Accent the Latin as though it were prose, and let the ictus flow underneath. So the ictus is sort of like the feet of a duck, when a duck's paddling on the water. You see the duck gliding along. Underneath, it's doing this. So a Latin poem is like that. You've got the feet, which are under the water, right? You don't see the feet. You only see the duck moving along. There are people that want the duck to be swimming upside down. Well, we don't do upside down ducks, right? You do not have, the feet are not visible when you are reciting Latin poetry, right? Dignum mente domoque legentis honesta Neronis Labitur uncta carina per aequora cana celocis Sternitur aequoris unda resolvitur aetheris umbra sed tamen anni labuntur tempore toto. And that's the end of our first lesson. The next bit of verse we're going to look at is rather longer.